and now they want us to train Earthers. Has High Command lost all reason? I muttered while wearing a trench in the polished floor of my office aboard Space Station Helios 9. The pristine metal bulkheads seemed to magnify my frustration, especially the restless movement of my secondary arms. My third eye lingered on a pile of transfer documents emblazoned with the seal of the Galactic Security Alliance. Let me be perfectly clear about Earthers, they appear downright fragile. They have no external carapaces, no extra limbs, and their skeletal structure is plain calcium. There's no reinforced alloy in their bones like most sentient species. When the integration directive first landed on my desk, I thought it was a prank from my old academy mentor, Admiral Tyrell. But no, here I am, in a top-tier combat training facility, waiting to greet the first wave of these recruits. The Ceron Military Institute has shaped the mightiest champions in 5 galaxies for over 12,000 years. Our elite can level continents or quell entire wars before they even start. Commander Lieutenant Neriel interrupted. The Earther transport has finished its last decontamination phase. Lovely, I replied with acidic sarcasm. Did they bring their gravitational stabilizers, or should we dial back our standard 3.5G to spare their flimsy circulatory systems? Neriel's scales flushed an apologetic blue. Sir, they declined any gravity assistance. They what? I froze. My dorsal spines tingled in shock. Are they suicidal? Even the Kirk species use compensators in these training modules. An alert chimed overhead, announcing the incoming transport. Through reinforced viewports, I watched the sleek little vessel dock at our main bay. It appeared laughably small beside our usual troop carriers. The Earthers had retrofitted some civilian craft for military transport, explaining it was more cost-effective, whatever that means. Gather the current class, I commanded Neriel. Let them witness what High Command has dropped in our laps and prepare the med labs. I'm giving these Earthers 2 hours tops, before the station's gravity starts crushing their frail bodies. As I headed for the docking bay, I recalled the limited intelligence we had on Earther military capabilities. They'd had minor successes mainly against pirate raiders or rogue extraction outfits. But this is Ceron, the apex of military instruction. We coach troops who can breach heavy armor with their bare hands. Frankly, we should have just shared a few baseline defense technologies with Earth and left it at that. But no, somebody in command decided full integration was key to boosting diplomatic ties. When I reached the bay, I found my 40 cadets waiting in crisp formation. They were the creme de la creme of our diverse cosmos, tall, imposing Ventori with their fiber steel musculature, razor-quick Sovrics with unbelievably fast synaptic networks, and a pair of Warrel warriors whose personal gravity fields thrummed audibly. Attention, I barked. Everyone snapped to readiness. Today we make history. The first Earther recruits join our roster. Watch them carefully, note their shortcomings, and remember that High Command, in all its wisdom. The bay doors cycled open, halting my speech. The hush that followed was palpable, and several cadets activated their visor enhancements to ensure they weren't seeing things. Standing in the entry, wearing no visible exosuit or compensators, was a rather unimpressive Bipt. This soft-skinned creature was supposed to be the future of intergalactic military cooperation. All 3 of my brains began throbbing. Still, procedure demanded I press forward. Identify yourself and list prior service for the record. Marcus Hale, sir, replied the Earther, voice projecting clearly. United Earth Marine Corps, Orbital Battalion 12. His calm tone told me he felt no strain under our heavier gravity. Intriguing. Circling him with the practiced eye of an instructor, I compared his proportions to the standard figures. Height moderate. Muscle mass borderline. Bone density at least adequate for 0G. Well, Hale, I drawled, letting my secondary arms move in a standard threat assessment pattern. Did your superiors brief you on how physically demanding this program is? Yes, sir, Hale said, meeting my eyes without flinching. At his back I noticed a Venturi cadet Raxog stifling a snicker through his respiratory vents. Similar expressions or body language of amusement rippled through the group. The Worrell pair flexed their gravity fields, probably making bets on how quickly the Earther would be flattened. At ease, I said, more curious than anything else. Hale shifted into a relaxed posture effortlessly. Sensors built into the bay floor were flagging normal biometrics for an Earther barely elevated. Commander Raxog stepped forward, voice brimming with bravado. Shouldn't we provide a brief demonstration of standard Siron training protocols to give our new friend a realistic glimpse? I recognized that tone, the typical Alpha Cadet maneuver to establish dominance. Usually I discouraged it, but this time I was curious. Proceed, I told Raxog. Training Protocol 7. With fluid swiftness, the Venturi launched into a display of advanced combat forms. His enhanced musculature could break armor plating, and he moved faster than standard optics could follow. Hale stood quietly, unruffled. That unsettled me more than I cared to admit. Impressive work, Cadet Hale remarked when Raxog finished. I found the energy conservation in the latter sequence particularly noteworthy. Raxog's second heart almost skipped a beat. You could follow that? Yes, sir, Hale replied calmly. It's similar to certain Earth martial disciplines, just performed at a higher velocity. The Sovrix twins whispered to each other in telepathic pulses, their auras glinting confusion. Another cadet, Zera, tentacles coiling in amusement, proposed a test of Hale's capabilities. With no small anticipation, I gave the go-ahead. Earther. Combat stance. Hale shifted into a position that looked wrong. His body alignment was off by Siron norms, no multi-limb stances, no layered defense. But there was a peculiar logic to it. Something about his posture reminded me of puzzle pieces arranged upside down. Sir, Hale said, still maintaining that stance. Request permission to engage full gravity controls. Denied, I snapped. Advanced gravitational mods are only accessible after baseline certification. Understood, sir, he responded, almost smiling. The rest of the day was filled with routine orientation barracks assignments, daily schedules, facility layout. Hale's composure never wavered, not even under the open mockery of some cadets. He just studied each new piece of equipment or procedure with the same unwavering focus. Finally, as per tradition, new arrivals had to pick a training partner. Choose wisely, Hale, I said. Your safety could depend on it. He scanned the ring of watching cadets. The two Worrells visibly dialed up their fields, hoping to scare him off. But Hale simply saluted. If it's permissible, sir, I'd like Raxog. The entire bay roared with disbelieving laughter. Raxog, top among our current class? The Venturi's bony ridges glistened with amusement. You're volunteering to train with me, he said. You must have a death wish. Yes, sir, Hale confirmed. Unless there's a rule preventing it. Raxog stepped forward, a formal sign of acceptance. No rules broken. This will be interesting. As I watched them leave, I noticed something peculiar in Hale's biometric log. His vitals stayed evenly within normal ranges. Whether from ridicule or confrontation, the Earther's heartbeat never spiked. Either he had impeccable discipline, or there was more to him than met the eye. Cadets, my voice echoed across the main training hall. Physical evaluation begins now. Holographic obstacle courses deployed throughout the vast arena, each one tailored to a species' known limits. For Hale, I assigned a course designed for adolescent Sovrix. Even that, I expected, might overwhelm him. Test 1 endurance, I announced. Everyone 40 laps around your designated tracks. Gravity will rise 0.5 g every 10 laps. The cadets launched into motion. Raxog loped gracefully, crystalline muscles flexing to maintain speed. The Worrells activated their personal fields to lighten their steps. The Sovrix twins, each with neural reflexes fine-tuned for speed, dashed with liquid precision. Hale set off at a measured jog, neither quick nor slow. Raxog passed him repeatedly, sneering as he sped by. "Can you keep up, Earther?" Hale didn't answer, he just kept running. By lap 25, gravity was at 4G and 3 cadets had tapped out, their physiology unable to cope. Raxog's confidence was starting to wane, his normally brilliant plating had lost its sheen, but Hale maintained a steady pace. Commander Lieutenant Neril whispered, holding up a scanner. "His vitals. They're steady. Check for malfunctions," I growled, but the results were conclusive. Heart rate elevated but still safe. Minimal muscle stress. On the final lap at 5.5G, only Raxog and Hale were left. The Ventori looked on the edge of collapse. "Hale." He still ran on broken rhythm. When they finished, Raxog collapsed in a trembling heap, while Hale calmly stepped over to the hydration area and drank a single gulp of water. "Beginner's luck," someone muttered. "All right, cadets," I called, trying to conceal my unease. "Move on to live fire drills. Standard multi-phase rifles, 10 shots each, at moving targets. Our plasma rifles are built to accommodate various anatomies, featuring neural link triggers and recoil dampeners for up to 4 limbs." Hale, with only 2 arms and no multi-point nervous system, fumbled just picking it up. His first shot soared off target, inciting snickers. "Maybe the Earther would prefer a crossbow," Zara teased. Hale managed 2 hits out of 10, our worst performance in 20 training cycles. I dismissed him as a near-hopeless case, at least with advanced firearms. Next, unarmed sparring. 1-on-1, no augmentations. Raxog eagerly stepped forward, muscles twitching. Hale squared off in his odd, puzzle-like stance. "Begin." Raxog's initial assault was classic Ventori precision lightning-fast combos designed to obliterate. Hale simply pivoted aside. Strike after strike missed him by centimeters. "Stop dodging." Coward, Raxog snarled. "I am fighting," Hale answered in that same calm tone. "Just not the way you're used to." After a full minute, neither had landed a decisive blow. Raxog's frustration was obvious. He was the strongest among us, yet he couldn't tag this so-called weakling. Hale made no move to counterattack, only evaded. "Pathetic," I declared, masking my confusion with contempt. "A true warrior must also know how to land a strike." Dismissed. Prepare for tomorrow's advanced weapons lesson. Despite his lackluster show with rifles, I caught Hale scrutinizing one of them after dismissal. He ran his fingers over the neural nodes, eyebrows knit in thought. "Find something useful in your failure?" "Recruit?" I asked, stepping closer. "Just analyzing, sir," he replied. "These links are built for multi-cluster nerve pathways, correct?" "All standard rifles are," I said. "Yes." "Fascinating approach," Hale murmured, returning the weapon to the rack. "Thank you, sir. Looking forward to tomorrow's exercises." Late that night, while reviewing the day's recordings, I noticed that Hale's footwork during the endurance run never changed, perfectly consistent stride at increasing gravity. The combat footage likewise revealed meticulously precise body positioning. He hadn't really struggled at all. It was as though he'd been testing how everything worked. "Cadets," I announced, pressing my palm against the secure weapons vault, "today you face an ultimate test of your readiness." The doors slid open, revealing a single imposing firearm on a stabilized platform, 2.5 meters of alloy and high-density power cores. "The Goliath cannon," I said, pacing around it. "Legend says High Marshal Zurich ended the Bellex uprising with one shot from this beast, piercing a dreadnought's energy shields. It requires immense strength, top-tier neural synchronization, and it can snap ordinary bones like twigs." Reverent silence fell. Even Raxog stared in awe. The Goliath was a fabled, near-mythical test piece used to measure the absolute limits of a soldier's skill. Lieutenant Neril tapped a console, activating the holographic scenario range. Targets of varying sizes and velocities materialized around the chamber. Your task is simple: power up the Goliath, strike 10 targets within the designated time, and remain in one piece. Cadet after cadet attempted to lift or charge the Goliath. One by one, they failed. The Worrells couldn't manipulate its quantum-locked mass, and the Silvrix twins lacked the necessary physical resilience. Then it came down to Hale. "Earther," I said, arms folded, "want your name added to the list of casualties." Hale studied the markings on the Goliath's surface. "Sir, these icons near the power core, they're overcharge indicators, right? They warn about fatal energy levels." I smirked. "Not that it'll matter, you won't get close to those thresholds." Hale ran his hand along a secondary grip that normally accommodates multi-limbed species. "Interesting." Then, to my amazement, he wrapped both hands around the Goliath and lifted it clear off the platform like it was nothing more than a training rifle. Gasps echoed across the hall. "System alert," the Goliath's AI chimed. "Unknown species parameters. Recommend maximum safety protocols." I waited for the recoil to fling him across the chamber, or for the neural interface to crash his nervous system. Neither happened. "First target sequence," I called in a forced, steady tone. "Commence firing." The training environment sprang to life with obstacles and drones weaving unpredictably. Hale gripped the Goliath and fired. A plasmic roar lit the chamber, demolishing the first drone's shields in one direct blast. He swung the weapon seamlessly onto the second drone, another perfect hit. "Look at that stance," Neril shouted over the din. "He's redirecting recoil through his hips." By the 7th shot, I was too stunned to speak. Each target disintegrated under the unstoppable blasts. The Goliath's power cells glowed white-hot, and the AI kept warning, neural load exceeding design specs. Cooling recommended. Hale ignored the caution. The final 2 drones arrived at opposite corners, moving at hypervelocity. Instead of targeting them directly, Hale angled the shot at a reflective barrier, splitting the plasma beam in 2 arcs. Each arc found its mark, eliminating both drones simultaneously. "Qualification complete," the AI declared. Time 21 seconds. New course record. Previous record 47 seconds, set by High Marshal Zyrek. Hale carefully returned the Goliath to its cradle, steam rising from the interface points. He stepped back, chest heaving but otherwise unscathed. "How is this possible?" I demanded, losing my composure. "That cannon breaks warriors with 4 arms. You have 2. The neural feedback alone." "Well, Sir," Hale answered, "humans don't distribute neural loads the way most species do. Our system may be rudimentary, but it's remarkably flexible." As for the physical strain, he shrugged. "I grew up on a 2.2G mining colony. Handling Earth movers isn't so different from this, just with more fine-tuned targeting." An oppressive hush settled over the training bay. One of the Venturi cadets whispered, "He's from a mining colony. The data didn't compute for any of us." "Lieutenant Neril," I finally said, looking at the old qualification logs on my datapad. "Update the official records." "No need to overwrite the old ones," so she asked with a wry tilt of her head. "Create a new category," I replied. "Raxog," I heard Hale call from the training floor below my office. "Try adjusting your elbow alignment to better absorb the feedback." I watched as the once cocky Venturi cadet, now thoroughly impressed, nodded and mirrored Hale's movements with the newly improved rifles. It had been 2 weeks since Hale's record-smashing run with the Goliath cannon. The entire atmosphere of the Institute had shifted. Aliens learned from humans. Humans learned from aliens. The Silvrix twins discovered new ways to incorporate Hale's footwork to optimize their neural link speeds, and the Worrells integrated human recoil techniques with gravity fields for devastating effect. Lieutenant Neril stepped into my office with fresh data. Commander, you should see these metrics. Cadet performance is surging across the board, efficiency up nearly 45%, neural adaptation by 60%. Even fundamental strength tests are climbing. I gazed down at the bustling training bays. Hale was demonstrating a combined Venturi-Earther fighting stance that just weeks ago would have been dismissed as worthless. When we first got them, I thought we'd be pulling the Earthers up to our standards. Neril nodded. Turns out they're pulling us further than we ever expected. Send a message to High Command, I instructed. Inform them that the integration program has surpassed every expectation. Recommend we expand it immediately. She tapped on her datapad. Already relayed, sir. They want to triple the Earth recruitment for next cycle. I returned my attention to the training floor in time to see Raxog execute a flawless human-style evasion while maintaining a Venturi power lunge. Applause erupted from the mixed crowd of cadets. You know what strikes me most? Lieutenant, I asked softly. Not just how strong or adaptable they are, but their readiness to share everything they learn. Hale's first priority after mastering the Goliath was to figure out modifications for other species. Neril nodded. Engineering just finished testing those modifications. Early results suggest a 30% drop in neural stress for multi-limb operators. I watched Hale lead a demonstration with a half-dozen species, each adopting or exchanging techniques. Co-creation was happening before my eyes, bridging biological differences in ways I'd never imagined. Lieutenant, I said quietly, tell the Earth Defense Council we're beginning Phase 2 of the program, full integration of combat doctrines. Let's see how much further this synergy can go. Below us, Hale and Raxog switched partners mid-demonstration, fluidly blending Venturi strikes with human footwork. A swirl of cheers and curious onlookers followed their every move. It was a far cry from the mocking skepticism on day one. Final log entry for this training cycle. My initial estimate of Earther military value was wildly off the mark. Future dealings with them should anticipate unforeseen capabilities and remain open-minded. I paused, observing as Hale pulled off another impossible trick with casual aplomb. Indeed, the galaxy had grown more fascinating. Commander, Neril said from the doorway, a slight grin tugging at her features. Shall I prep the Goliath cannon for tomorrow's general rotation? Yes. And Lieutenant, I flicked an antenna. Returning my gaze to the training floor increased the gravity settings by half. Let's see what new boundaries get broken when no one believes in limits. In that moment, I knew the future of interstellar warfare wouldn't be about who had the strongest biological edge or the most advanced tech. It would pivot on the adaptability and collaborative spirit that Earthers brought to the table. And soon enough, other academies across the galaxy would learn that you should never underestimate a species determined to conquer the impossible.